Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of Goth Yearbook After Hours. It is I, your host as always, Eric, aka the Eric Wynn. And with me as always is that hostess with the mostest, Caitlin, aka the Caitlin D. Caitlin, how's it Chris Gainsing?
How's it theater of the minding?
Oh no.
I'm just theater of the minding my own business over here. Um completely forgetting what is happening in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have had like a sprained neck, or that's at least what I think it is, because I've had this happen before and that's what it was that time.
Mm.
And so my whole life, it's like I'm a complete space cadet right now. But you know how like when you're in kind of acute pain all the time, it's like all you can think about, and like your brain's kind of like doesn't really attach to anything else. It's
Yes.
just like, so I've
Disassociating.
been in that state. It's starting to get better. Yeah, disassociating, that's the term.
Yeah.
So a lot of processing. It's been weird. I was like doing really well after vacation, and then I just like crashed completely. So just recovering from that, taking it easy, but also, just healing. Just healing.
We're
What about
all
you?
out
How are you
here.
doing?
I,
Do you have any post vacation blues?
I do. You know what? I was going to say everything you're describing is actually how I've been feeling like the last week. I feel probably because for the last like 18 months, I've not done anything. And then the last 2 months, I've done so much. Like, basically got in and out real fast, got all my stuff before everything shuts down again or everything like faux shuts down. So I feel like now I'm really
Mm-hmm.
like, I am. It's taken me a long time to decompress up to and including this moment as we go live on the show.
No.
It's
Yeah.
been hard to like I don't know, reintegrate myself into my bed, I guess, or into my normal life, my day to day. I've been just like a space cadet for like the last 2 weeks for real.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I have to do everything twice. I can't like leave the house without standing in a room staring at the ground for 5 minutes, and like it's just everything's confusing. It's been a lot of pain, a lot of bad dreams, and I'm just like, fuck. But also it's weird because, if anyone's listening in the future, this is a strange time of our not so quarantine summer, where like COVID is still a thing, Delta's a thing. People are having a lot of climate grief, I think, right now.
Yes.
Capitalism seems to be like in its death throes, and so it's like fighting back against the people and just being extra douchey. It's just a weird time, and I think everyone's really stressed out. And I feel like my sensitivities as a human being are being heightened right now. And I'm already kind of a sensitive person. And by that, I just mean I feel like I get sort of easily overwhelmed by energies.
Yeah.
And also, can to use it in a good way for compassion and like doing healing work and that kind of thing. But like today, I reached for this bottle of tea that my friend made me,
Mm.
and I hadn't like had any of it yet. And as soon as I like picked up the bottle, I felt like I could taste it in my mouth. And I was like, that's really weird. And then I tasted it, and it tasted like that. And I was like, I have no boundaries at all right now. Like, my reality is just splitting apart like Humpty Dumpty. Um,
I like the idea of like that's your Marvel character. It's like, what's your superpower? It's like if you get me like close to food, like I know what it tastes like. I don't actually have to.
I don't want to brag, but yeah, I know exactly what you taste like.
You're at restaurants, they bring you
Yeah.
the plate, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, we're definitely
God.
we're operating at 100 right now.
Yeah.
Woo.
So,
Anyway, yeah,
um,
summer.
summer, ascension,
I do want to.
crumbling capitalism, or maybe not, maybe, 100
Yeah,
more years, who knows?
I felt bad too as you were saying that. I was like
AI is like
sipping.
killing people. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say like literally the second you brought up, just like the state of our world, I like started sipping from my plastic water bottle. I was like, ooh, get that off screen. It's
That one's
me.
made of corn. Um, that's torn plastic, and it's going to be made into shoes now.
I can't help but like bring up the fact like right before we went on, Caitlin goes, "Oh, I was like, what should we talk about in the intro?" And Caitlin's like, "Well, let's talk about we have like our summer vacations to talk about." And just last week we did a whole. And you know what? Like that's not even a cap on you because I've been in the same headspace. It took me. I had to check the calendar
I,
to like know what we were like doing the next 2 weeks like 3 times in the last couple of days because I kept being like, "What?" Like, good times.
I had a conversation with someone today about our podcast, and I was like, yeah, he was on vacation, I was on vacation, and then I think he got like lost in Vegas or something, and then yeah, we haven't recorded in like 3 weeks, so I haven't even seen it. And then like I believed that until 5 minutes before we started the show, and you told me that that wasn't true, that we did an episode last week, and now I remember it, but it just was like
and
anyway, so this is a great episode tonight to
we
be in that headspace where I think like not quite reality, but not quite not reality.
Yes, that's a perfect way of describing it.
Right?
And a good segue into this is to tell the listener, I will right now admit on the air, I did not do my good co-host diligence and let Caitlin know like well in advance what this week was going to be about. So when I posted the art for the first time like on Saturday,
I was like, "What?"
Yeah, you sent me a DM that just
me?
said in all caps, our fun little what? You go, what? And I was like, oh yeah. By the way, do you know who Garth Brooks is?
Like, kind of course I know who Garth Brooks is, but in another also very true sense, no idea. You know, like I don't know anything about him. I don't know like his backstory. I've never been like a fan or anything, you know. So
okay. Do you know
yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's get our guest in. Maybe we can talk about some of our histories with the man himself.
Should we tell people what the episode is for anyone out there
Yes.
who can't read?
Yes, tonight we are breaking down we just mentioned Garth Brooks. We're actually going to be focusing specifically on his alter ego, Chris Gaines, a fictional character that Mr. Brooks and his team created. And to help us break down this incredible moment in pop culture is our own on-air pop culture historian herself, making her triumphant return once again. We got Danica E joining us live via Zoom. Oh my gosh, that was pretty instantaneous. Hello. How's it going?
Welcome.
Good. So I'm really glad we're all collectively in a fugue state going into this episode. We're all about at the same level of energy, which is really exciting.
Yes, this is all good.
My first question to you, Caitlin, is so you're aware of Garth Brooks. Were you aware of Chris Gaines as
No,
a figure?
I mean, I feel like it was a familiar. If you had asked me, if you had like pulled me out on the street and you had been like, do you know who Garth Brooks is? I would have been like, sure, kind of. He's like a country music singer.
Superstar.
Maybe like a boomer age superstar, you know. Second, if they were like, okay, you know who Chris Gaines is, I would probably be like, I think he's a magician.
Hey, that's not far off by like the look. Look is very like
yeah. So that's about and since then I've watched a little bit of the VH1 Behind the Music like mockumentary. It's not even a mockumentary, it's just not it's a fake documentary.
Correct.
And I read the Wikipedia article about Chris Gaines. So that's as much as I know, and I can't wait to learn more because everything I read I was like, this is incredible.
Well, it's pretty amazing. If you didn't grow up with a family who were constantly playing Garth Brooks, like my mom was a big Garth Brooks fan.
Same.
In the night, yeah. So Thunder Rolls, the Lightning dance Strike is still like so good.
My mom still like will like not like sob, but she will like gently like weep when the dance comes on.
A single tear.
Like when the dance comes on, she will just like think about like.
Oh, I love that. Jog is my hero.
So it might be interesting for you to know, Caitlin, because I did compile a mini bio of just Garth Brooks very shortly before we came on. So what you guys might not know is Garth Brooks is actually the biggest selling solo act of all time. Across all genres, biggest selling solo act, over 170 million albums.
Are you
And
serious? Holy shit.
Yeah. He's the biggest selling solo act of all time, and the only artist before him, so he's bigger than Elvis by units sold, and then the only artist before him, and it's a group act, is the Beatles. So he is second to the
Wait,
Beatles.
you mean Garth Brooks, right?
Garth Brooks, yeah.
I
Chris
thought you
Gaines.
I thought you meant the Chris Gaines album. I thought you meant the Chris Gaines album. I was like, what the fuck? Holy shit.
No, the reason I'm
Nothing is real.
Yeah.
I'm trying to set the stage because we have to understand how powerful Garth Brooks was in the late 90s to try and pull a stunt like this. Like,
Yes.
this is how he got away with it. So he's like the only artist to ever have 9 albums go diamond status.
Mm.
So that's like his thing.
He's not. He's big enough where he doesn't have to be on Spotify, which to me, like, that's a sign of like someone being huge.
Mm-hmm.
So do you remember when we were like jamming about this, and I said I have a thesis statement about Garth Brooks as an artist? Right? Do you remember what that was?
No.
Garth Brooks. My thesis statement about Garth Brooks is the Prince of country music. There's a lot of parallels. Like Prince like was very anti-streaming, and obviously he's on streaming now posthumously. Right. But Garth Brooks like left country music in the mid 2000s to raise a family, came back and was like, I'm anti-streaming. You couldn't find his music anywhere, and now it's finally on Amazon. But the Chris Gaines album is not. Correct. So there's a lot of like interesting, like, I'm playing a character, it's a concept album. Like, he was very ahead of his time.
Yeah, in fact, the music just became available back in March, not necessarily on like streaming platforms or at least Spotify, but the Chris Gaines material, like they just started releasing it on certain platforms, and I think they like re-released. They released it digitally. I saw an article when I was looking up some history. I just didn't see like where it was, but it's the first time, I guess, apparently ever that it's been released in some sort of digital format.
So it's not released yet, but he did do an article. Yeah. But he did do an interview in March of this year where he said that they're going to release it all on every single platform, including producing vinyl releases of this album.
Holy shit. Hey, we're...
Wow.
But as of right now, it's like impossible to find. So I think it's important to back up and talk about like what the concept of Chris Gaines is, which is basically in the late 90s. Keep in mind, Garth Brooks is at like the top of his career. He, unbeknownst to anyone, for many years had a production company, and he was developing a film that was called The Lamb. And The Lamb was going to be a film where he played a fictional rock star, and the plot was a super fan is trying to prove that this fictional rock star, Chris Gaines, was actually murdered, and the Chris Gaines you see is an imposter.
Well, like Avril Lavigne.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to expound on that. I don't know.
That's like a
There's
current
like a
internet theory
that she's been replaced.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. Oh, you're okay. Yes, I have heard about this. So he has this production company called Red Strokes Entertainment, and this is the company that he's doing it for. And I think Fox is going to distribute it. And so what ends up happening is, before the film even goes into production, he embarks on this absolutely bonkers press tour that involves a few elements. So I did a little outline with the different elements. And to me, there's 4. So there's the makeover, which is this physical transformation as performing as Chris Gaines. There's the album, which was released as a greatest hits of an artist that didn't exist. He hosted SNL and performed on SNL, and then the crown jewel is definitely a fully produced fake behind the music that was aired without explanation, including all of the normal talking heads from all of like
Billy Joel,
Melinda Newman. Billy Joel is in it.
Yeah, like holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, and to think that like this is happening before you can just sort of like go on your phone and look up like, is this a real artist?
The era
like you would
of Blair
totally
Witch.
buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he did this concert series as Garth Brooks on NBC that probably had like tens of millions of viewers, because back then like people would sit down and watch a live concert like that. And in the middle of the concert, he announces, by the way, I'm going to be playing this rock star in this movie called Chris Gaines, and he throws a picture up on the background. And I don't know, maybe we should go into the look really quick, Eric, if you want to bring up an image.
Yeah.
Because the look that he went for, and it's kind of uncanny, looks exactly like 2005 Trent Reznor, but like he predates Trent Reznor. It's like emo hair, a soul patch. He basically invented a new aesthetic of goth. It's like Maoist goth, where he's wearing like these like black high collared shirts.
I am pulling up if I could get here quick enough. Oh, it's like the smallest image of all
And
time.
what was like his style as Garth Brooks at that time?
His style was, he was very well known for like denim button-up shirts. He kind of originated the wraparound head mic actually before Britney Spears. That was the thing that he kind of cowboy hats, always denim, just like cowboy boots, classic, country star.
I think it'd be fair to say like he wasn't like the most like traditionally like good looking country guy the way like like a Kenny Chesney or this or that. He kind of looked like your dad, like anyone's dad at your school or something like that, who just happened to be like a mega star country dude.
Right, like the everyman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he was from Tulsa. He's the youngest of something like 8 kids. Like went to Oklahoma State. Very like, I think he studied advertising, and then he graduated 1 degree or 1 credit short of his degree and started playing open mics, and just like a very normal like country kind of route story. And this is the look that he decided on for the character.
For the YouTube listeners,
he looks like a sexy video game character.
I love the well manicured like soul patch. Like it's very, I don't know, it's stylized very well. He's giving a look for sure.
It's real tucked away in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the jury is out on if that's like a makeup artist creation. I mean, even the hair, but apparently he did lose a lot of weight specifically to embody this person. So he really did go full goth on this, which is like very appropriate for this show.
Oh, absolutely.
It's fascinating too. I mean, I love anything where someone's like just bending people's just like capacity to feel like they're in a real place, like understand what's going on, like we were talking about in the beginning of the show. Reality feels weird and topsy-turvy right now. So I love this topic right now because I feel like I probably did hear about this person and there's no way I would have known or would have been reading the right things, I guess, to like be aware that this was something he was doing, I guess. And I think even at the time I just would have been like, well, that's weird. But now looking back on it, it's like a very interesting idea. It would be like I'm just imagining someone else doing this same sort of thing, like Rihanna, like out of nowhere, just like having this completely alternate like persona. And then it kind of just going to, well, I guess we haven't gotten to the end, whatever end of it, but.
Well, what's interesting about it, I think the reason why it kind of like is so jarring is because he was such a superstar at the time that this wasn't a press, like if a major studio makes a film with a music artist, they have like a whole marketing team that comes up with the whole plan and they like roll everything out in the order that they think makes sense. But he was such a superstar in his own right that he had his own production company and he's just like, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to throw it into the mix. And he did all sorts of crazy things. Like he had 21 custom guitars made by like this very famous guitar. Did you read about this?
I saw that like just before we went live. I saw that Fender, like just in, like you said, it was like there was only 21 ever made.
There's only 21 and they were all given to cast, and like instead of having a PR person who knew how to like, let's get the public on board with this film, he just came out and said, I'm doing this film, but he did it very guerrilla style. Like when he announced it during his concert, he had like pop-up video style factoids that would pop up on the screen about Chris Gaines as if he was a real person. And it'd be like, did you know that Chris Gaines sold over 220 million units on his first album? And people are like, I don't know who this person is.
I'm just imagining like these drunk like or like high people just trying to like be at a concert and enjoy like their favorite songs by Garth Brooks, being like, what the hell is going on? Like what?
Wait.
Well, and you have to remember his fan base. Yeah.
No, go on. I'll ask after you're done.
I was just gonna say, his fan base was so like heartland, like American heartland based, but he kind of like crossed over into the mainstream. So like all of his hardcore fans are like in the middle of the country or in the Bible Belt, and they love like Friends in Low Places. They love like this kind of music and have this hardcore left turn. But everyone was kind of like putty in his hands because he was such a superstar that no one could be with it.
Do you remember when?
And I mean, even just
Size apply.
It's the spirit of Chris Gaines, like the darkness of his soul, just like went over your Zoom camera.
Eric, go ahead.
I was gonna just ask, Danica, do you remember like when because I remember the first time I heard about Chris Gaines, and the only thing I don't remember any of the rest of this real madness until like years later on the internet. The only thing I remember about any of that was the Saturday Night Live performance, which was Garth Brooks hosting, and then inexplicably Chris Gaines, and I like back then, I think I was like 11 or however old I was, so that like there was no context whatsoever, so you're just kind of like, what is going on? Like it was so confusing for it in a pre-internet, or at least the internet that we know now. Do you remember what your first was?
Like
it was the same, and I was 99, so I was probably 10, like I was 9 or 10 at the time. And I think like because we didn't have, I feel like the internet and social media allows you to be like reactionary and critical and like, I'm gonna look this up, what's going on with this? But at that time you're just receiving everything so passively that like I didn't question it. It's just like there is a Gothic Garth Brooks happening, and then he went away, and then the next thing came along. So that was what I remembered. But then I revisited it in college in like 2009 and like went down a huge rabbit hole, and I was like, how are we not talking about this all the time?
Right.
Well, and it's confusing too because it seems like in the documentary, the VH1 documentary that's like fake, there's a lot goes into like recreating pictures from the past and like a whole full-on movie, and like having all these like interviews with real people talking about this not real person, and it's like, does he want it's confusing like whether or not he wants people to know that this is like not a real person, because then if he's like talking about it, it's like, what do you want? What is this? What's going on?
He's exercising a lot of demons, I think. And I think like in interviews, he's talked about how there's like parallels between him and his relationship with his dad. But for the benefit of the listeners, I did write a very short summary that I can read speedily that summarizes everything that happens in the VH1 behind the music, because it is very intense. I think it's worth everyone watching. It's on Vimeo. You can watch it for free. Do you mind do you want to indulge me?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Please. All right, so keep in mind, this is a fully produced behind the music episode with a lot of like actors and like journalists, Billy Joel, as you said, Eric.
Yeah.
And this is the backstory that Garth Brooks wrote about Chris Gaines. Okay, here we go. Chris Gaines is a sex addict and unbelievably successful rock musician who brings chainsaws on tour. Born in Australia to Olympic swimmer parents, he moves to Los Angeles. In high school, he meets his best friend, Tommy Levitz, who at 16 is a licensed pilot, and they start a band called Crash, thinking they will be the new Lennon and McCartney. They gain success and do a tour of 50 states in 50 nights. Then Tommy decides to fly his plane to the next tour date and crashes and dies. Chris's dad gets cancer and then decides he has to become successful before his dad dies. And then he does, and he fucks a lot of women, and then his dad dies. Then his manager, who he's also fucking, takes advantage of him financially. After recording his second album, Cornucopia, he falls asleep behind the wheel and wakes up to his Corvette flying off a cliff. He recovers, has extensive plastic surgery that completely reshapes his face. He starts learning to play again, and then his house burns down. He tries to put out with a garden hose. Then he really dives into his sex addiction and asks things like incestuous threesomes. And finally, his girlfriend asks him to go to therapy, where he figures out that he's a sex addict because of his dad. Then he drives to the Mississippi Delta to find himself. Then he starts making music with soul, releases his greatest hits, and then starts making his new album, The End.
Incredible.
Oh, wow. What a life.
It's just important to get all of the details in.
No, I love the idea of having a best friend who's a pilot when you're a teenager. I think that sounds like a Nickelodeon show that we didn't get.
I had to rewatch that part twice because I got so confused. I was like, wait, the 19-year-old is the one flying the plane? Like, I had to, I missed it. I had to, like, rewatch that specific part because I was like, I did not hear that right. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, according to the timeline, when he's like, oh, he goes to high school and then meets his best friend who's a licensed pilot who's like 16. Like, so they're saying he can fly a Cessna as a teenager. But the best part about his best friend's death, and there's the best part, is that Chris Gaines tries to warn him. He's like, I knew the weather was bad. I told him not to fly.
I made him promise me. That's what he's like. He's like, I made him promise me. And then he's like, he promised he would. He's really trying to sell some performances throughout. I have a quick question. Caitlin, you only watched 10 minutes, but you could have even seen enough of this. But Danica, am I crazy, or is it like a rotating cast of people who are playing the young Chris Gaines, like in pictures that they use? Because there's no way it's all the same guy.
So apparently, the story behind young Chris Gaines is that Garth Brooks knew that he needed to cast a younger actor to play like the young version of him.
Right.
But he wanted him to look really good. And so he actually got the actor that plays young Chris Gaines is the same guy that played young Brad Pitt in 7 Years in Tibet.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah, it's the same actor. And
did 7 Years in Tibet come out and he was like, get me that guy because that's what I look like now.
So he showed this guy to his brother and was like, oh, this is who's gonna play me. But like to justify the fact that we have different bone structure, I'm gonna be in a car accident. And his brother quipped like, oh, it must be a really bad car accident. So he really just wanted
it was really bad.
So it is just the one guy, but there's like a weird egomaniacal like drive to just have like the hottest version of like the rock star I imagine my younger self to be, but then also having the self-awareness like, well, I have to justify it because obviously that guy wouldn't grow up into me, so I have to be in a car crash.
It's very like, and it's a very soapy element to put in there too.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's all pretty soapy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's also, it's funny that to him, like I know that obviously there has to be a little bit of like tongue in cheek, whatever. I don't know. Do we know who like actually? Because it's technically like a script, like this VH1 thing. Like maybe they let them kind of ad lib, but more or less it's following a dialogue. Like, did he write it? Was his team? Do we know who actually like was the one who put those words down by chance? Or Danica, were you able to find that out?
So oddly enough, what is his name? Don Was, who's the producer that's interviewed in it, who also produced a bunch of tracks on the album. He wrote it with Garth Brooks, and get ready for this, the other producer of 4 tracks on that album also contributed to the script, and that person was Babyface.
No way! Are you serious?
That's serious. I found that out like today. I found that out today reviewing my notes. So, which actually makes sense because if you listen to the Chris Gaines songs, he sings in this like soft falsetto. It does sound very Babyface, but keep in mind this is Babyface in 1999 producing for TLC and Vogue, Madonna, like just unbelievable songwriter. So then there were a bunch of people in his production company, but I think part of it was sealed because there was like a lawsuit with when the movie didn't happen. And so
Oh,
you can
shit.
read a deposition of the CEO from his production company, but a lot of it
Holy
is
shit.
like very opaque. It's hard to find all the details.
I
But I
figured.
do have sorry?
Go on, go on.
Oh, just two quick things before I forget. While they were developing the film, I found out that Garth Brooks was actually offered the lead in Twister, and then he turned it down. Bill Paxton's role in Twister, and
Whoa.
yeah, and the thing that really blew me away today is apparently Steven Spielberg offered him the role of the sniper in Saving Private Ryan,
No.
and he turned it down. Yeah, he turned it down because he wanted to be the star and didn't want to be in an ensemble cast. And then Steven Spielberg said, well, like, what role would you want to play? And he just said, a bad guy.
Oh wow.
Oh boy.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for
Hey,
him. Um,
Steven, a bad boy, obviously.
Yeah,
Oh
100%.
jeez. You did have me pull some clips. So we take a look at some of them, Danica.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
Oh well. So you gave me some timestamps, but I was also gonna just play like the first couple seconds of it, so people could just get like an overall vibe of it, because it kind of like immediately jumps into the tone of it, and people can see what he looks like, or at least what the concert that they keep kind of like showing before you play it, where it's like him wearing like a lot of black and it's like him with the already crowd. Was that the NBC special thing you were talking about, or was that during it?
No, the NBC special, he was dressed as Garth Brooks, and that I think they actually filmed with a live audience just for this behind the music.
Okay, that's what I thought it might have been, but I wasn't sure if this was something that like they actually got clips from. Okay, perfect. That makes it even better in my opinion. So let's for the people at home, you'll see right now what we're kind of getting into here.
He was a rocker who liked fast cars and even faster women.
Sex. That's the greatest thing about being a musician.
His passion for music was rivaled by only one thing.
I've gone to his hotel room on occasion, and there have been more women there than I would count on one hand.
But his addiction to sex finally forced Chris Gaines to seek help.
All right. I real quickly during that live show, I found a picture too to reference. To me, he kind of looks like Uncle Fester from Adam's Family Values when Joan Cusack forces him to wear like a wig and big coat. There's like a real vibe that I felt during that. Oh boy.
Don't scratch it till the scab falls off.
Okay, so we're gonna play our first clip here. Danica, do you have your notes? Do you want to set it up for us real quickly?
Oh, okay. I think this first one, I really just wanted to emphasize how much of like a daddy issues kind of situation we're dealing with, which in all seriousness, apparently Garth Brooks did lose his father to cancer. And so he was like working through that with this. But this is where he's talking about his relationship with the father, the Olympic swimmer. And then his mother kind of ends on this like very dark note about their level of affection for each other, and that's all I'll say.
Okay. Danica, are you guys able to hear the audio over there?
I wasn't in the last clip.
I didn't either.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, I apologize for that. Let me see if I can quickly do that. Sorry for the listeners on the YouTube right now. I'm not sure.
I thought that was the theater of the mind thing you were
Yeah,
talking about.
exactly.
I saw your little thing and it cracked me up.
It's the fugue state.
I apologize. You gotta share the sound. Duh. Okay, so let's get into this. Yeah, I figured when he shows those pictures during the thing of his dad, it kind of looked to me like what kind of looked like Garth Brooks. I figured those were actually pictures of his dad. So I was hoping that this is gonna sound macabre, but like I was kind of hoping that maybe his dad did pass away from cancer, because otherwise I'd be like, man, that's fucked up to like use real pictures of your dad and be like, and he died from cancer. Dad's just watching like, oh shit. All right, let's
Tragically, he's died. His dad's like, come on.
Gorgeous.
By the time Chris reached
All right, you guys
adolescence,
can hear that,
Gene
right?
Gaines made it
Yeah.
clear he wanted his son to follow in his footsteps.
My father wanted me to swim, of course. I think everybody in my family wanted me to swim.
He was just so thrilled that his son was going to be a great athlete.
If it was athletics, he could pull me over and explain everything to me face to face. As far as anything other than athletics, it was just not a gift that my father possessed.
I mean, Gene must have said he loved Chris at some point, but I don't remember it.
So much to unpack here.
That's his mother. That's his mother saying that.
Oh man, that particular line really got me good.
Just like, yeah, like he probably didn't love him very much. I had never saw any of it. That his father loved him. I don't understand what he meant when he said, I mean, he's like, when my dad, if it was athletics, my dad could pull me over and explain it face to face.
Yeah, I was very confused by that as well.
Is that what fathers do who are involved?
They just get like this close. Like this.
They like pull you over in your car and they're like, listen.
I think he meant like, oh, my dad's only love language was sports.
I
think is what
see,
he meant.
I see,
But,
yeah.
But as he said that, in my mind, I just imagine when he's like face to face, I just imagine them being like this close together. And then his mother just very cavalierly says, and he couldn't communicate otherwise. I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, they're Australian. Like none of this is coming. I have to emphasize that again. His parents are Australian and moved to LA, and they end up with Garth Brooks.
Well, wait, his real parents are Australian?
No, his fictional character.
Chris Gaines.
Chris Gaines, yeah.
Parents are Australian. She didn't have an Australian accent, did she?
She had like an English accent. I don't know if it was Australian.
I mean, I wouldn't know the fucking difference. I just don't even. I didn't pick up even on an accent, I guess.
Oh yeah, 'cause there was an accent. Would you describe it as Australian, Danica? It sounded more British to me, but
it sounded like broadly British. But I have a feeling, guys, this is the late '90s. They weren't trying to be politically correct. Okay, they weren't getting authentic Australian actors in film.
Was his mom even an actor? Was she a swimmer?
The guy who does the Foster's commercials in the Outback, he's busy that week, so let's just bring in this lady.
I wonder where the Olympic swimmer idea came from.
Yeah, well, so I know that Garth Brooks did track and field in college, so he was an athlete himself. But the swimming part is, yeah, I'm fascinated by that. It's very specific.
Yeah, the other thing that made me laugh. Okay, so I was kind of saying this earlier, but I didn't like finish the full thought. But obviously, like him, Babyface, and the other guy. Why am I blanking on his name? Who's the other producer?
Was.
Yeah, obviously, like some of it, I have to assume, like they understand, like there's a little bit of like a tongue-in-cheek aspect to it, but Garth Brooks, I do feel like there is like a slight like that delusional part of it where. And one of the things is like how they keep kind of going back to the high school thing. Like in most of like a true, like behind the music, it'd be like he fucking dropped off, or they would like not spend so much time on the high school thing. But like he almost like makes a point to be like, I did go back and finish. Like, even like his dark rock star self, like he can't allow himself to be too dark ever in this. So it's like, no, I did go back and finish high school.
Well, and it shows like how much he is really trying to perform something that's so antithetical to his personality. Like even the camera angle for the interview, it's like down and he has the hair swooped and there's like candles, hundreds of candles just going like all to add to the affectation because he's like working so hard to be this person, and that's like vastly entertaining for me.
It really go on.
I was gonna sort of move it forward, and I was gonna ask like how it was received then.
So, I mean, the general reception for all of this was just like rank confusion. Although he did have, so there were 2 singles from the album that you can readily find. Well, kind of. Lost in You was one single that actually charted on the top 40.
Yes.
And it's a straight up ripoff of More Than Words by Extreme. Bite me on that.
And the music video is a ripoff of the. I watched it earlier today. The music video is more. Did you watch the music video, Danica? It's basically like the Goo Goo Dolls video for what was their big hit from the City of
Iris?
Angels? Yeah. It's like it's almost exactly like that. Like the set design is exactly like that weird room that the guy's hanging out with, like all the weird telescopes looking out in the city. I swear to God, go watch it. It just looks like that, but with like a budget of only like $200. It's crazy.
Weird.
But even then, the power to make multiple music videos and concert experiences in a show for something that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yep.
Respect.
It kind of honestly sounds like a classic sort of like midlife crisis, but when you are in the seat of being this like tremendously popular music artist.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I think I want to get to like, so there's like a couple more clips,
Yeah,
and some of them are specifically about the sex addiction part that I think are funny. But the next one that I sent you, this is a clip about this is where like Garth Brooks is trying to be like, oh, this band, it was like anti-establishment, like our band Crush was anti-establishment, and it's incredible.
Say let's watch it right now.
College.
By June of 1986, Crush had completed recording their debut effort. The album was shipped to stores with great expectations. Then somebody noticed a little problem.
It slipped by all of us, this picture of Chris that appeared that he was giving everybody the finger. He had his hands in his pockets and just the middle fingers were sticking out.
People have always wondered, did he mean to do it? Well, of course he did. You know, he's not stupid.
I think the bird was more intended to the system. And it was a message I think we were sending out, that we were going to do things our way.
A few
I love that they blur it out.
But to answer your question, Caitlin,
Yeah.
I don't think he even cared how people received this project. But
Sure.
the general reception was pretty much utter confusion, although one single did chart, and then eventually, because the album was poorly received, they just didn't ever complete producing the movie. Although he's talked about it in interviews as if the movie was made and it'll never be released. So it's like, again, the parallels between Prince and Garth Brooks are just endless.
He is just living in a surrealist fantasy scape of his own creation.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. Good
Okay.
for him.
So next up, we got what the Crush is all about. We'll just let it play, and then we'll talk about it after, because I think it kind of will speak for itself.
Yeah, it's nice. I like the fans, the women. All the attention is cool, but I think just what Chris said earlier, it just boils down to having the love for it.
They're full of dude. It's all about the paycheck. It's all about the women and the parties, man. It's the clothes.
Dude, check these pants out. Check that out, man.
We were on top of the world. I mean,
That guy really does look like Brad Pitt.
Oh shit! I love his fucking '69 baseball tee too.
No, I meant the Chris Gaines guy, but
No, I know.
was that supposed to be the younger one? That wasn't actually Garth Brooks, was it? Like on the side?
The younger guy, the guy in the black vest, was the guy that played young Brad Pitt. So
Okay, yeah, that guy did look like Brad Pitt, but yeah, the guy that was talking. I mean, yeah, it's all just so wacky, and it makes me wonder too. Like, was this funny for him, or was it like dead serious?
I have a feeling it was completely earnest, although like when he does interviews about this time in his life after, he's not butthurt about it. He'll like make jokes. He's like, oh, I got the shit kicked out of me on that one. Like, people didn't get it. I have a feeling like, I think he just wanted to do something completely different and did it very earnestly, and then it didn't work out, and he had a good sense of humor about it afterwards. But I think all of that was made completely in earnest.
Yeah, I can't help but think that like the people like in his circle, like the other people might have been working on it. I feel like they might have found the more immediate humor, or kind of like kind of got the joke of it, or thought like it was a joke, and I think that Garth Brooks went into it maybe like even around them was like yeah, but I think it was like his part, like his helping hand in it, which obviously is like huge because it's all about him, is very earnest. Like I think it's a because he's just kind of out of touch, you know. It's impossible to be, you know. His first album came out like '89, and immediately like that first album, maybe it's his first album, no, but like his first like successful album was '89. So this was exactly like 10 years later. We're talking about like a multi-millionaire guy who's just like only known a life of like being in stadiums and at the top of charts like that. So it is impossible for someone to be completely in touch, you know, at that point. Especially back then with like no social media, like nothing to like ground you. Like you're just in this nonstop bubble with no, you know, outside view.
Well, when your line of credit with the public is that big, you really think, because like your risk assessment is totally different. Like when you're selling that much. But I also like, and this might be a little generous, but I think he's an incredibly prolific artist. He was like making albums like every year, sometimes twice a year, touring constantly, loves to perform. He only stopped because he was like, I'm going to raise my family. Garth Brooks is a good man, okay? Let's just get that out of the way. He's a very good man.
Shouts out to Trisha Yearwood.
Yeah. But I think he actually was trying to do kind of like a David Bowie character change. Like, this is an era. Like, this is my era. Chris Gaines, the era. And then maybe I'll have a different era as a country singer. I think he thought he had a wide enough berth to take a risk like that and just took it.
And boy, did he take it. It's a big swing.
He took a big leap, yeah.
That's why
I respect that.
Yeah, it's why I love all this so much is because, you know, I think everyone loves like a big swing like that. And that, again, like to kind of go back to my thing earlier, like the bird thing, like it's so funny because to me, like other people would write that and be like, yeah, the joke is that like how fucking stupid is like giving the bird so harmless like that. But I can't help but think like to Garth Brooks, it's like, to him, it's like, well, that there is a little bit of controversy to that, guys. Like, fellas, like he would never do that. Besides, on something where it's very obviously kind of like fake, more or less, you know.
I'm sure everything he did was so controlled, you know, like by his whole team and everything, you know, that would be something that he would never be allowed to do. So in this project, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna bring a chainsaw on tour. The fuck is that? Like,
he even I love that he even calls it the bird. Like he doesn't. They won't even say just flipping off. Like they have to refer to it still as like the bird. Like they're still like the most softening of the edges throughout this. Like he doesn't do heroin. He does, his addiction is sex. You know, which that's what kind of like tease up our next clip here. Real quick side note: the movie that never came out was called The Lamb. For anyone who's listening to this right now, A24, like the big, you know, hip studio, they just released like trailers for the last couple weeks for this new like horror film coming out called The Sheep. And I kept like all week while I was like doing notes and looking up stuff, I kept switching the two up. So I'd be like, oh yeah, and he's got this new movie, or this movie that never came out, The Sheep.
I thought it was called The Lamb.
I think it's called The Lamb.
The new A24 that's coming out?
It is called The Lamb.
Oh, okay.
Nothing is called The Sheep.
Except for us, am I right?
Oh shit! Oh.
I saw the trailer for that. My one of my boyfriend's friends worked on that movie, but like my
I thought you were gonna say one of my boyfriends. Like one of my boyfriends worked on it.
My boyfriend's friend
Respect.
worked on. I think he was like the DP or something, but he was showing me the trailer and I was like, wow, this looks really cool. But my brain, because we had this planned, I couldn't stop thinking about Chris Gaines.
I can't believe that movie's actually called The Lamb too.
The Sheep.
That broke me up. I'm actually crying right now. Oh shit. Woo. Okay, let's get. I need to get
reel it in, buddy.
For the listener at home,
Eric is having an emotional release. That's what we call it in the biz.
Having some gangs.
All right, now back to sex addiction.
Yeah. Okay. Should I play the clip first, or do you want to give anything on it?
I just want to preface this again. I can't emphasize enough how much sex addiction plays into. It's so integral into Chris Gaines' story to a point where like I'm trying to understand what Garth Brooks was trying to tell us about himself or maybe other people that he knew. But it is so stilted, kind of like the Bird thing, where like they do these talking head interviews where it says like he just loved sex. There were just babes everywhere, and it's so awkward.
Yeah.
And there's a couple clips of this, but yeah, it's worth going into.
But yeah, the whole thing. How long is it? It's 43 minutes. The entire, without commercial breaks or anything like that. And I genuinely not, being exaggerating or anything like that. I would say not more than 30 seconds will go by before they will reference him sleeping with someone or his sex addiction, or like women as like like babes like that. Like it is quite literally the bulk of this entire thing. Okay, let's play this bad boy.
Yes, all the doctors told me I would have trouble walking and I definitely never play the guitar again. I knew I would walk again. But living my life without music, and this is embarrassing to say, but I was worried about living my life without sex.
For the next 18 months, Chris...
Oh, boy.
Okay.
The
So
music.
sorry, I should have said that better. That is after he survived a car crash. That is what he does. He's worried about not ever being able to lay it down again.
Wow.
Correct me if I'm wrong,
I would
but
be worried about that.
yeah, hey, no shame in that. Correct me if I'm wrong. The reason why he gets in a car accident is because they were recording so late, right? It was like that they were recording. They had what do you call it, like a marathon recording session is what they refer to as.
And they had an insert photo of him like asleep, like young Chris Gaines asleep on the couch, and then he gets in his sports car and it's just before dawn and he's speeding home to Malibu, and they keep saying like he had the radio on so loud. It was just so loud, it was cranking up. And then he wakes up to his Corvette flying off a cliff. Not just I crashed into a pole or whatever. The moment he wakes up is he's flying off a cliff.
Again, it goes back to the thing of like he couldn't. I don't know, just the fact that like it couldn't even be that he was so tired from like fucking so much, like just like hours of fucking. It was like he was really good about his art and his work.
Like, drunk.
Yeah, like it was just like he had such good work ethic that he crashed his car. Shouts out to someone real quickly. Someone in the YouTube said Eli Arneson is the DP of Lamb, and he's great.
Right.
So shout out to Eli. We see you, buddy.
Shout out Eli.
We love you. We see you.
We hope you worked on the sheep, the follow-up.
Oh boy. Okay. So what do we got next, Danica? Oh yeah, we're going to continue a little bit more on Chris Gaines's debilitating sex addiction.
Yeah, this is this is the last one I think I sent you. So before we go into it, it's worth watching because he has one kind of consistent girlfriend throughout this named Maria Costa, but then they keep interviewing this other girl who's like the side chick, and her name is Jennifer Allgood. And she's like, it's like the most cheap throwaway, like Bond, like sex thought name ever. And there's like a great quote where first she says, I knew I wanted to draw the line when he asked me and my sister to go to bed. And then I said, I can't fuck my sister. It's basically what she said. And then
they just dropped that, like, yeah, he was really bad. He brought a chainsaw tour. He also like did incestuous. He wanted like incestuous orgies or sex, or was that? Did you say
that's what I was referring to? Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's one point where they like do like a 5-second clip of her, and she says, sometimes he had 4 or 5, 6 women. He could go all night, but I'm not as limber as I look.
What? Why?
I don't know.
Shit.
I don't know.
Hey, by the way, the brilliance of Garth Brooks, years ahead of like the step sibling porn, boom of the 2000s.
Incest is older than Garth Brooks, okay, Eric?
That's true. It's the oldest industry in
the oldest profession.
Yeah. Professional incest master. Okay, let's play a little bit of this right now.
Epic proportions.
If ever there was a human being that needed treatment for sex addiction, it would be Chris Gaines. And I'm smiling, but it's really not that funny of a situation.
With Chris, the whole world was his stage, and that, tended to cross over into the bedroom. But I'm not as limber as I look.
I've gone to his...
Woo!
Wow. I mean, in that context, now that comment feels more aggressive. Like, that's intense though. Like being like, I'm laughing because like he was a really fun alcoholic, but it's actually a pretty serious situation.
And you know what's funny that you say that is it's just occurring to me now how interesting it is that there's no mention of alcohol or drug abuse in like his entire story. They don't even mention him like drinking. They're just say like his version of partying is just fucking. But
Yeah,
like doesn't sound like he does coke, doesn't sound like he does anything else.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if Garth Brooks was sort of like, my fans can't handle the substance abuse, but like my fans love the ladies. Maybe they'll give me.
You know what?
It's like,
what's the coolest addiction?
yeah.
What's crazy is that's exactly.
Which also satisfies my ego. Sorry.
I was gonna say what's crazy. That's actually exactly that was true for Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons of Kiss. They both like detested alcoholics and drug addicts. Like they like did not. I mean, I'm sure like they got a little bit drunk probably back in the 70s, but after a certain point, they both like turned their nose up at it. But they like fucked literally like dozens of like fans at every stop that they would go to, like literally their whole entire lives. Like that's always been like their big claim to fame, to the point where it's like very obvious that that is an addiction probably that Gene Simmons has. And it's that this is literally what their behind the music would have been like, because they didn't party at all. They just, that was their version of partying, was they just wanted to fuck basically.
Okay, so it's established that Chris Gaines is in the pantheon with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. We've made this clear.
Except all the chicks he banged were imaginary, and he was actually going home and like reading his son stories at night, or I don't know what his children's situation is.
You're right though. Now that I'm thinking about it, even when it showed like the young them in Crush, like is in there, like the narrator's like they had access to all, like usually they would at least hint at like, and they're like getting drunk, they had access to all the drugs like that. They don't even like hint at it. And the guy says himself, the other member of that band, he's like, yeah man, what's also great is the money, the paychecks, and like he wanted to say the pussy, but he couldn't, so he said and the
he had the clothes. I've never heard a single red-blooded, like, heterosexual rock star be like, you know what is the best thing about this gig? The fucking clothes.
And he's wearing that fucking 69 shirt.
Look at these pants.
He's like spanking it like, these bad boys at $30. You know what? I forgot another great part we kind of skipped over. You mentioned it in your intro or your little summary sheet, but a special shout out to the quick little storyline where his original manager, I'm blanking on what the character's name is, but she takes advantage of him by basically, it sounds like she like wrote a contract where she's getting like a lot more of the royalties or whatever. But then a part of it, which just blows my mind, I'm still so confused how it works, is like, Chris Gaines discovers that his manager is like kind of swindling him, because one night he's like, I'm selling so many albums, so how come I only made like $1 million this year or something like that? So he went through and looked at like the bank statements and realized that he was paying his manager rent at the house that he owned. So he's like, how is it that I bought this house with the money I earned and I'm paying her rent for it? And I'm like, yeah, how?
I have a rebuttal.
Okay.
She Lou Pearlman'd him. Like,
okay.
That is full on. That's full on exactly what happened to NSYNC and Backstreet Boys.
Oh shit.
Okay.
He actually wrote a contract where he said he was like he was a member of the band, and then like everything that like the houses that they got, and he would like organize the lease and everything. That was like exactly what was happening. So I actually my disbelief is thoroughly suspended for that. But it is funny, like her reactions when she's like, "It's not my fault he didn't read the contract."
Right.
She's not diplomatic at all. She's like, I don't know, I was fucking him. It's not my fault he didn't read the contract.
They gave her two different ones. The first one's that, and then the other one was like, I don't regret what I did. Like, it's the only time where someone's like real charactery. Like, she probably like had some work at like Second City or something like that, where she's like, no, I am evil. Like, I was a bad manager.
It's not even that. It's like drag. She's like doing a drag character.
It's very broad in that moment because she does like, it's like as if anyone would ever go on one of these things and say that, like, and then by the way, if you're seeing this, please let me represent you. So
I'm still wrapping my head around how Billy Joel got involved in this whole mess, but
you know what, Billy Joel and Garth Brooks is like the Billy Joel of country music in many ways. Like, even though he is like a superstar and had like all those hits, like they are both such like everyday men. And like Billy Joel, like his version of even though he did technically like drink and drive, and you know, he did have like a little bit of controversy, but he's still such a like dad kind of guy at heart. Like he's very much just like a meat and potatoes sort of guy.
Lots of dads drink and drive.
It's true. I can see both
and
of
moms
them
too, Caitlin. Moms can do it too.
I don't know if you heard of them.
Equality.
Yeah, I don't know. I could totally see the two of them just vibing. They both have like such like boring old man energy to them. They can't. I could totally see them being like golfing
I find
buddies.
that offensive.
On which part? Like, who are you offended about me saying that about?
Again, I'm saying Garth Brooks is the prince of country music, not the Billy Joel. I would say Keith Urban is maybe the Billy Joel.
What? No way.
Any of those boring fucks. I think Garth Brooks has pizzazz. I think he has chutzpah. He has, what is it? Charisma, uniqueness,
nerve and talent. Yeah, that is correct.
He's feeling cunt, as the kids would say.
Oh boy. Where you did already explain why he's like Prince, but I'm having a hard time finding the complete parallel. Besides like business decisions that were made.
Okay. So I guess the few main parallels would be one of the most storied performers of their genre, kind of like extremely commercially successful, but also in complete like autonomous control of their own recordings, estate, like owning their masters. You know, like Prince had to fight for his masters back from Warner Brothers, but got them back. Wouldn't release any of that on streaming. Basically controlled like all of their own revenue and production, and took pretty incredible artistic risks. And might I say, both incredible performers. I've never seen Garth Brooks, but I did see Prince at the Forum in like 2012. And I'm gonna say I'll probably have the same emotional reaction to that show that I will to see Garth Brooks.
Yeah. All right.
I'm listening.
Eric, do you have a counter argument?
I don't actually. You know what? His double live album is like it's in the top of live. I'm not a huge like even though it's no longer really considered modern, but I'm not a fan of modern pop country from like 80s on. Besides like maybe some of the stuff I grew up with, including the Chicks, but the Dixie Chicks are material from the 90s, and
just call them Dixie Chicks.
Garth Brooks, Reba McEntire, like a couple Brooks and Dunns here and there, like a couple of those guys I grew up with. I have like nostalgic like for, but I would say the Dixie Chicks and Garth Brooks are like the only two where I'm like I still listen to it and I'm like I'm hyped up. I listen to Colin Baton Rouge and I'm like throwing stuff. I'm like opening the pit up to that song. It's so goddamn good.
I would love to see you open the pit up to Friends in Low Places. That's like the slowest mosh that's ever happened.
That song is still, go to any karaoke or any like bar that's a little bit more, I don't know, like other, you know, redneck style, blue collar style. That song, when it comes on, like the whole place goes fucking bananas still to this day.
Or if you come into my apartment at 8 a.m. when I make breakfast, it pops off. Like,
Is that your go-to? What's your go-to? If you had to convert someone right now on the spot to Garth Brooks, what would be your go-to song?
The Dance, 100%.
That's a slow burn. I would say Rodeo would be mine for like, it's a good in between. It's like, it's got a little bit like that.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I just said, but.
You know Papa Loved Mama, that song?
Oh, that's a great fucking song.
That's
God
a great
damn,
song.
he had hits.
He's got hits on hits on hits.
He
I'm
does. He
telling
really
you.
does. He is stacked up. Garth Brooks, my friend, I see you. We did hit the hour mark. We watched our clips. Danica, you tell us, what do you have any final thoughts?
Closing
or,
statements.
Yeah, is there any other notes that you'd kind of gotten that you want to make sure we hit?
I think I've made a perfect argument as to why he's the Prince of country music. I think I would just say to anybody watching at home, definitely just look up the behind the music to watch. I've actually ruined 2 parties making everybody sit down and watch it. And at first it started out funny and they were laughing, and then I would start shushing people so they could hear the next part. So definitely watch that. But I did actually pull a quote from Garth Brooks that we could end on, and this is just like him talking about Chris Gaines. And so this is in 2015. He says, he's like, I don't think you're ever gonna get it. All I can say is my ribs are still sore from getting the shit kicked out of me for doing that one. But I love that record. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And to tell you the truth, because it's all about the music, and I thought the music was fantastic.
Oh, I like that. For closing statements real quickly, I do want to point out I did listen to like a healthy amount of the album today. I had to really fucking seek it out. And a lot of it is country. It's like a softer, I guess, more pop rock or light rock take on country, or if you want to, but it still feels kind of like a country record by all, for all intents and purposes. But I like that the approach of it was that it was not a country. Do they ever? They don't really ever say. I guess, do they mention like genre at all during the faux documentary?
They don't, but they say like when he makes his next album, he's like, oh, he started making music with soul from the Mississippi Delta. But I do think one of the funniest song on the record is Right Now, which I don't know if you got to listen to that.
I don't. Which one is it? Because I'm not going to remember titles necessarily.
It's the song that samples "Get Together" by the Youngbloods.
Yeah,
and it's fast spoken word in the style of "We Didn't Start the Fire" or like, or "It's the End of the World," and he's like, maybe it's the Bible or maybe it's the lack. Like he's like rapping, and then the chorus is, "Come on, people now."
Which again, that if you listen to my coworker, unfortunately plays a lot of country music. And a lot of modern day country music, like it's like a weird hybrid of like pop and even hip hop, or like at least like a sort of like the patter, like a certain thing that like is reminiscent of someone attempting hip hop. So Garth Brooks, you're right. You know what? Visionary. Like
visionary. I'm saying, he's a luminary. If he's not the Prince, he's at least the Kanye West of country.
I was gonna say when you were talking about like the long recording hours, I was thinking of Kanye in his stadium locker room.
Oh boy, I love that picture. So
100%.
good. Okay, Danica, thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts you want to give us before we close out this evening?
I don't know. I think I said all that I needed to say.
Caitlin, do you have any final thoughts? Are you going to check out Garth Brooks' material based on tonight, or Chris Gaines?
I am. I like country music. It's just like for whatever reason, I haven't really listened to it. I didn't have that mom. So yes, I'm going to go listen to both of those artists.
Go
those
listen.
Totally real artists.
Go listen to Garth Brooks The Dance right now, for real. Like get the mood, 100%. Play with your little mood light thing, set it to like purple or dark blue, whatever like the more antagonistic ones are settings, and just get vibe. You and Prince just vibe on it. It's a vibe. All right. Well, Danica, thank you so much for coming on the show and enlightening both us and our listeners about the strange pop culture phenomenon moment in time watermark known as Chris Gaines. Caitlin, as always, thank you for being the co-host with the mo-host. I'm going to say goodnight, y'all.
Good night. Bye.
Good night, guys. Have a good one.